Shubhi, you can start.
Namaskar. I, Shri Mathur, would like to welcome one and all present here. This time of the year, when most of the children are enjoying their holidays, Picnic has been able to guide thousands of students through life-changing experience. During Anubhav 4, these students not only have witnessed beneficial performances, but
Shubhi, you are not audible. I'm so sorry. You are not audible properly.
mm, so we are going to take you to the. Am I audible now?
Your voice is very feeble.
Is it just free like? Am I audible now clearly?
Yes, please go. Yes, you can begin actually.
All right. Namaskar. I, Shubhi Mathur, would like to welcome one and all here. This time of the year, when most of the children are enjoying their holidays, Speak has been able to guide a lot of students through a life changing experience. During Anubhav 4, thousands of students not only have witnessed the performances, but also have enjoyed the opportunities of learning various art forms from these great artists. Every beautiful journey comes to an end. Before we step towards to the end of this experiential and joyful journey, let's all together witness Chhatrapati Shivaji Vastu Sangrahalaya, a recipient of 2010 Asia Pacific Heritage Award Cultural Heritage Conservation. The museum houses approximately 50,000 exhibits of the ancient Indian history, as well as the objects from the foreign land. I would like to now welcome Atre Chakravarti ma'am to guide us through the virtual tour to the museum.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, hi. Okay, so can I start?
Yes, please. Go ahead.
Okay, okay, great. So, first of all, thank you so much for that very warm welcome. And as ma'am said, my name is Atre Chakravarti, and I work as an education facilitator at the Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj Vastu Sangrahalaya, which is a museum in Mumbai. So, since all of you are here to witness what the museum looks like, so I'm really excited to take you all through this virtual exhibition. So, let us start with a little bit about the history of the museum and the architecture of the museum, and then we can go ahead with the galleries inside. But before we do that, can I see some hands? How many of you have ever been to a museum before? If you could raise your hand, or if you could just type a yes or a no on the chat box. Any kind of museum that you have visited, museum or a sangrahalaya, any art gallery, any museum. Okay, so I can see one hand, and the others, can you write it on the chat box like a yes or a no? I can see that a lot of students from Vijay Bhumi University are attending the session together. So maybe some of you can raise your hand if you have been to a museum before? Okay, great. So I can see some of you have been to one, so that's wonderful. And have you heard of the name of this? Okay, great. Okay, so great. Some of you have been here. Now let us see what the museum where I work at looks like. So let me quickly share my screen first. Just give me a moment. Okay. So ma'am, can you see my screen? Is it visible?
Yes, ma'am, it
Ye-
is.
Okay, wonderful. So, this is what the museum looks like from outside, and it is in the southern part of Mumbai. The name of this area is Kala Ghora. Okay, and as you can see, this museum was formerly known as the Prince of Wales Museum. So, just like the names of places change, like earlier, Mumbai was actually called Bombay, and now we have Mumbai. So, just like that, the name of our particular museum has also changed. So, now let me tell you where this name has actually come from. So this museum is actually super old. It's 100 years old now. But even before that, the foundation of the museum was set in 1905. So what happened in that year? So at that time, the Prince and Princess of Wales, okay, and later he was King George V. At that time, he was known as the Prince of Wales. So he had this plan to visit India. And of course, when such an important dignitary is visiting the country or visiting a particular place, then people obviously want to do something nice, want to do something special to mark the occasion. So there were many prominent people of Mumbai who sat together and decided that this would be the perfect opportunity to make a public museum for the citizens of not just Mumbai, but the rest of the country as well. And that is where the idea of the Prince of Wales Museum came from. So they decided that we would build kind of a structure where there will be historical and cultural representations of Maharashtra, of Northern India, of Southern India, and even some international depictions as well. So they started building the building, and then in 1914, finally the building was completed. Okay. But immediately the museum did not open to the public. As you might know, a museum is a public institution where everyone can enter and enjoy all of the artifacts and all of the stories. But from 1914 to 1922, the museum building was actually used as a military hospital, because this was the time when there was the First World War and there was also an influenza epidemic. So, of course, people needed hospital beds and nurses and all of these facilities to treat the sick people. So, the museum was not actually used as a museum at that time. It was first used as a hospital. As you can see from these images, it's a very big building. So, there was a lot of space to treat people. And then finally, in 1922, the actual purpose of the museum was fulfilled, and we had a museum where people were welcomed. Okay. And as you can see from this photo, the museum is situated in a semicircular plot of land. Okay. As you can see, these are two big semicircles which forms a garden, which forms actually four gardens. Okay. It's called the Charbagh. And this particular site is called the crescent site because of the semicircular shape. So if you ever have the opportunity to come look at the museum now, you will see that the original building and the gardens have been maintained in more or less the same way when it was built in 1922. Okay. Now coming to the inside of the museum. So, as I told you, the museum was built with the initiative of the people of Mumbai. So then the question came up that who is going to build this huge building where we have to hold so many artifacts, right? So what they did was they held an open competition. They didn't just select anyone that they knew. They decided that we are going to open up this competition. And at that time, there was an architect by the name of George Whittet. Okay. And through the competition, they decided that he would be the best to design this particular museum. And this competition happened in 1909. And then once he built the museum, so there is a particular style of this architecture, which is called the Indo-Saracenic style. Okay. So what it basically means is that it has a mixture of different architectural styles. So there are some elements from Hindu architecture, there are some elements from Islamic architecture, and there are some elements from Western architecture as well. So, of course, all different kinds of architectures have particular designs that are associated with them. So, this is a mixture, this is an amalgamation of all of these different styles. Sorry. Yeah. So, when you actually enter the museum, I want you to see the photo that's right in the center. Okay. The photo with the pillars in front of you. So, this is the main entrance of the building, and you enter into a pillared hall. Okay, as you can see, it's a very big hall with a lot of pillars. And when you go close to the pillars, you'll see that they are very intricately carved. Okay, so they are not just normal pillars that you see at your house, but they have very beautiful carvings on them. Okay, and this this pavilion that you see on top, this wooden structure that you see on top, was actually brought from a vara in Nasik. Okay, so from that property, they brought this entire pavilion and installed it here as it is. They did not change it. They installed it here. So this is in itself is a very big attraction for the people who come to the museum. And if you see on top, you will see that there is a dome. Okay, you might be familiar with structures like the Taj Mahal. That's a really famous one, which also has a dome on top. So this is again a very distinctive feature of Islamic architecture that you can see in the museum. Another element are these jalis. So on top of if you see the picture and you see on top, you can see that light is coming into the hall, right? So these structures are called jalis. So, at that time, there was no air conditioning and there was none of these things that we have now. And Mumbai does get pretty hot during the summer. So what these jalis do is, of course, they let in light. Okay, through these pores, the light comes in. So there is a beautiful natural light in the main hall and in the museum. And they also let in air. So when you come here now, even if it's really hot outside, you'll see that because of the very high ceiling, because of the entire architecture, the room actually remains very nice and cool. Okay. So, a lot of consideration, a lot of things need to be thought about when such a monumental structure is actually being designed. So now moving on to what you can actually see inside the museum. So our collection is huge. We have more than 70,000 artifacts. Okay. And we don't have any one particular kind of collection. We have a very mixed, very varied collection. So suppose, there are some museums which only have pieces of modern art. There are some museums which only have, something related to science, something related to archaeology, something related to textiles. Yeah. So those are one kind of museum. but ours has many different kinds of collections. As you can see from this photo, we have natural history specimens, we have artifacts from China, from Japan, from other South Asian countries, we have European paintings, we have sculptures, textiles, miniature paintings. So it's a very varied collection. Because again, you should remember that the whole idea or the whole purpose of building this public institution was so that people could come and enjoy different kinds of culture. So now that I have given you a little bit of a background about where the museum is and what it is, let us go into the museum and see what the various galleries look like. So I'll just have to change my screen. So just give me 1 second. Okay. So this is actually an application that all of you can use, and it's a very useful application which is called Google Arts and Culture. So if you have never heard of it before, it's you just go on Google and you type this, and you'll see that there are objects and there are galleries from not just this particular museum, but there are many other museums that you can view here as well. So, you can just go through these museums, see what, if you are interested in history, if you are interested in archaeology. So this is a great resource for you, because you can learn a lot about, actually, without actually going to these places, you can learn a lot about the collection and the artifacts that are available. So let us see what the museum actually looks like. Yeah. So as I showed you from the photos, this is the main entrance of the museum. I hope everyone can still see my screen. If there are any issues, do let me know. So this is the main entrance of the museum. This is from where the visitors enter. You can see the pillars, you can see the pavilion that I was talking about. So you go in, and we are now going to go into one of the largest collections that we have, that is the pre and the proto history. So I'll just show you what the main entrance looks like, all of this. So yeah, this is essentially what the main lobby area looks like. Now let us go into one of our galleries, which is the pre and proto history gallery. Okay, here. So yeah, as you can see, this is the entrance of the gallery. And right now, this gallery is under renovation. So if you come to the museum at this moment, you will not be able to see it. But again, like I said, this is a huge collection that we have. And thankfully, we have these online resources so that we can still look at some of the objects, even if they are not on display. So when you enter the gallery, so, usually when we are viewing any particular gallery, we have a tendency to start from the left. Okay. It's, we are left oriented in India. So we have a tendency to start from the left. So that is how I am going to start this tour as well. So we start with prehistory. Okay. And so, a museum shows you representations of a particular time period, right? So in order to show prehistory, we have some stone tools in our collection, which I am going to show you now. Okay, so this is what the stone tools actually look like. And I also have some stone tools here with me, which I like to show you. So this is, sorry. Yeah. So this is one of the earliest stone tools, and it's actually called a hand axe. So as you can see from the photo in the case as well, that this early man is using this hand axe to do something. So, as we developed, as we started hunting for animals, as we started collecting food for ourselves, we needed some tools and we needed some equipment to help us in our daily endeavors. And so, what was the most easily available thing? It was these kinds of rocks. So they chipped the rocks, okay? They started chipping the rocks, and they did it in such a way that the rocks would have sharp edges so that they could easily hold and throw it at animals. They could use it to grind any roots or any fruits that they needed. So these are the earliest forms of technology that we have evidence of. We understand that humans have started thinking of ways on how to make their lives easier, how they can make hunting more efficient, how they can make gathering more efficient, and so on. So, over time, we actually see a evolution of the kind of tools. Okay. For example, right now we have your swords, we have your guns and everything. So just like that, the tools also developed over age. So the stone tools did not remain the same, they also developed. So this you can see as the next stage after that. So this is a little bit more heavier, it's a little bit more rustic. Okay, they haven't done much work on it. But then we move on to these kind of tools which are actually much lighter to hold. Because when you're on the run, when you're trying to hunt something, you can't have something really heavy in your hands, it's going to limit your movement. And also another thing that they thought of was how to actually hold these weapons. Okay, so if you can see here, there is kind of a depression here. If you can see, I don't know if it's clear, but yeah, so there is a kind of a depression here, and this is basically in order to hold the tool more efficiently so that it doesn't actually slip and fall from your hand and you can aim it properly. So using these tools and using these equipments, scholars have actually understood how technology has developed over time. And then we have another one which is called a hammer stone. Okay, so these are different kinds of stone tools that are displayed in the prehistory section of the exhibit. Now let us move on to the next part, which is proto history. So I'll just give you a moment to look at these tools. Okay, so here are some more tools on display. And now we are moving on to proto history. Okay. So this is how you look around the gallery. Okay. Okay. So in proto history, we are going to be talking about the Indus Valley civilization, or as it's popularly known as the Harappan civilization. You might have heard of it in your history lessons as well. And we have a lot of artifacts from that particular civilization, which again shows how humans have developed over time, how their techniques have developed over time, and what kind of things they used in everyday life. So if you look at this particular, sorry, 1 second. Yeah. Okay. So when you actually enter, you see this very small sculpture here, which is called the priest king. Okay. So we have seen how the beginnings of technology or the beginnings of art, we can see it in the stone tools. But by the time we actually reach Harappa, we see that human beings have started making much more complicated items. Okay, they have developed their worldview, and this is called, like I said, it's called a priest king. So it's a very small sculpture, and you can actually see when you look at it carefully, you can see that it's wearing kind of like a shawl on its body, which has flower motifs, and it's also wearing a headband. So the thing with the Harappan civilization is that they do have a script, but it is a pictographic script. Like now we have letters A, B, C, D, 1, 2, 3, 4. So what they had was pictographic. They used pictures to denote what they were trying to say. And unfortunately, we have not been able to understand what this script actually means. Okay. So, even if now what you are writing now, if 1,000 years from now, if our languages have changed, if the world looks very different, so they might not be able to understand the kind of writings that you do now. So, just like that, we are not very sure. So, everything that we understand about this civilization, everything that we know about this civilization is through the objects that archaeologists have collected over the years. And this is one such object. So now let us look at the rest of the collection that we have. Okay. So this is a really interesting case because it's all about toys and games. Okay. So what you see here now, I actually have samples of it with me as well. So this is a toy maze. Okay. And this is something that kids of that time would be able to play, because at that time they did not have video games and all of these different things. So these are very old kinds of toys from Harappan times. And apart from that, as you can see, that there are small animal figurines also on the bottom. You guys might have seen plastic figurines of animals. So you can think of it as being similar to that. And the material that has been used to make all of this is called terracotta. Okay, so these are all mostly terracotta toys. And so this one is another, it's kind of like a bird. So it's kind of like a bird or a pigeon that you can say. And yeah, and again, this is possibly kind of like a turtle. So through all of these evidences, all of these artifacts, we understand the kind of lives that the Harappan people were living. Okay. Now let us look at some other section. Okay. Sorry. Okay. Just okay. Yeah. So now let us look at some of the pottery that we have. Okay. Sorry. Okay. Yeah. So in this section, as you can see, we have some pottery from that time. Okay. And of course, you must be familiar with what pottery looks like. But what is really interesting here are these jars that are perforated with holes. Okay, as you can see, there's one longer one and one which is a little oblong, and it has a lot of holes in it. So we do not know for sure what these jars were meant for. Maybe they had some ceremonial use, maybe they were used to clean something, and all of that. So there are different kinds of shapes, but we can actually only guess from the evidence that we have, but we don't know for sure what usage these kind of perforated jars had. And we have actually found these jars in different sizes. So there are ones that are really tiny, okay, this tiny, and there are ones that are very long and big. but they are all perforated with holes. So maybe even you can think about and let me know in the chat box what you think these jars might have been used for. Maybe you can come up with an interpretation that we have not used yet. And okay, so another really significant feature of the Harappan time, which is a really important evidence for us to understand the people of those times, are called seals. Okay, so I'll show you some seals that I have here. So so these are some examples of seals that we have. Okay, yeah. So, what are these seals, right? So, again, these are made of terracotta, like I told you about the toys. And if you look closely, these seals have some writing on top. So, as I said, the pictographic script that the Harappans used. So, this is a little bit of writing on it. Again, we do not know what it means, and it also has the depiction of of some kind of an animal on it. Okay, so this particular one that I'm holding has been named as a unicorn seal, because as you can see, this animal has kind of a horn on top. Yeah, so we've just named it unicorn seal because it looks like a mythical creature and not an actual animal, or maybe it's a mixture of certain animals. But what these seals were basically used for was for trade. Okay. So even at that time, people of Harappa were actually trading goods with other civilizations. Okay. Like we had one civilization in present day Egypt, which is called the Mesopotamian civilization. We won't get into that too much, but my point of bringing it up was that even at that time, they were exchanging goods with each other. So these kinds of seals that I showed you, so these seals have gone from Harappa to Mesopotamia, because we have archaeologists have actually found these seals in those sites as well, which shows that there were exchanges, people were buying goods, selling goods, and there was trade and commerce that was happening at that time. So these are some of the elements that are displayed in our pre and proto history gallery, which tell you about those times. Now we are going to move on to the next gallery, which is on the ground floor. And if you visit the museum, you will be able to see this gallery. This has been newly renovated, so it has a whole new look, and it's called the Sculpture Gallery. So this is on the ground floor of the museum. And when you enter, so the Sculpture Gallery has representations of Hindu sculptures, Buddhist sculptures, and Jain sculptures. And most of these sculptures are from medieval India. Okay. Now, these two structures that you see right in the beginning are called Dwarpalas. Okay. So these are kind of like, so when you go to Hindu temples, in a lot of them, you will see carvings or statues of Dwarpalas right at the beginning or right at the entrance of the temple, because they are considered to be the protectors, okay, of the deity that is inside, of the shrine that is inside. And when you go a little bit into the gallery, you will see this sculpture. One second. Yeah. So you will see this sculpture of Shiva that is called as Parel Shiva. So there is actually a place in Mumbai called Parel, okay, and in that place there is a temple of Shiva, of Mahadev. It's a Mahadev temple, And this sculpture was actually placed there. So the museum officials, when they saw this sculpture at the temple, they realized its artistic value. Because if you can see, I mean, it might not be very clear, but if you just look closely, you'll see that the sculpture is very well proportioned from head to toe. It's standing in a very beautiful manner. Okay. Then Shiva is actually wearing a string of beads on his neck. And if you look closely at the eyes, it looks like he's in a very meditative state, very calm. Okay. And you can also see Shiva's third eye depicted in this sculpture. And even his dhoti has been tied very beautifully. So because of the artistic merit of the sculpture, because they realize that whoever has made this has really put in a lot of thought, a lot of effort into sculpting this, so that temple was actually that this sculpture was actually brought from that temple to the museum. And what a really interesting story behind this is that the temple authorities at that time, they had a special request for the museum. They said that since this particular deity is worshipped, okay, it's worshipped every day at the temple. So when you take it to the museum, can you do something as simple as breaking a coconut in front of the sculpture every Monday, or like, on Mondays basically. And this is actually a tradition that is still followed at the museum, that on Monday, a coconut is broken in front of the sculpture, not because this is a religious place or any of that sort, but because it's kind of a tradition, and it's a promise that was made by the museum officials to the temple officials at that time. So that is something that is really interesting. And if you see right in front of Shiva, you will see Nandi. Okay. So Nandi was basically Shiva's, you can say, like transport system. Like now we have all these cars, bikes, we have so many different things, right? But so similarly, like that, gods also have their vahans. Like Ganesh has a rat, Kartik has a peacock. So Shiva's vahan has been placed right in front of him, and it's known as Nandi. Okay. So again, like how we proceeded in the Harappan gallery, here too, let us proceed from left to right. So let us go into the gallery. Just give me 1 second. Okay. And okay. So coming to a little bit about where these sculptures actually come from. So most of the sculptures that you will be able to see in the gallery actually come from temples. Okay. So at that this in medieval India, what was happening was, at that time we had kings and queens who were ruling different constituencies. So they actually got, so the temple was a very important site of social gathering. So not only were people going there to pray or to offer their respects, they were actually also there as a social place. Because now what do we have? Now we have your malls, you have your movie theaters, you have your parks, you have so many different means of entertainment. But at that time, of course, you did not have so many options. So the temple and the surrounding areas were places where people actually met each other, people met their friends, their extended family members. They all had a good, nice time together. So since the temple was such an important aspect of life, of their social life, so kings and other important officials actually invested very heavily, okay, on these temples to beautify them, to make them more significant, etc. And artists at that time, artists or shilpakars, so this was kind of a profession that was followed throughout time and through generations. So suppose there is one generation of artists who will live near the temple, who will make all of these sculptures, because all of this was, of course, handmade, right? So it would take time, it would take patience. And then after one generation of artists, the next generation would come in. So this was kind of a generational profession as well. And the main artists, the ones who were the most experts at it, were asked to make, the important sculptures, the inner sanctum with more detailing, while the others were made to practice. So this was a very important profession and a very important system that was going on. So when you actually go to each and every sculpture, you'll see that they were commissioned by different kings at different times. So now let us look at another sculpture that we have here. Sorry, 1 second. Let me zoom in a little bit here. Yeah. So this, as you can see, is actually half a sculpture. Okay. And this is the sculpture of Mahisasur Mardini. I maybe you have heard of the demon, the buffalo, half demon called Mahisasur. You might have heard the story of maybe Durga. Maybe this is something you're familiar with. But anyway, the story goes is that Mahisasur, who was a buffalo demon, he was terrorizing everyone. He was, causing a lot of chaos. So the gods made this, made this Devi, who was sent to actually kill Mahisasur. And that is why her name is Mahisasur Mardini. And even artistically, when you observe this sculpture, you will see that again, there is a lot of detailing that has gone into it. Okay. She has her foot right on the right on Mahisasur, which shows that she has broken his back and she has now conquered over the demon. So all of these details tell us a lot, not just about the artistic traditions at that time, but also about the kind of stories that prevailed, which have passed down from generation to generation. So let us keep moving ahead. So as you can see, this particular, sorry. Yep, sorry. Okay. Yes, we are going in this direction. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so here, if you observe all of these sculptures on your left, basically on the left of Mahisasur Mardini, these are other Shakti depictions of Shakti in Hindu culture. And let us keep moving ahead. Okay. Okay. So here now, in front of you, okay, so this is Sheshashayi Vishnu. Okay, so as you can see, Vishnu is in a lying down posture, and he is actually lying on top of snake. So that's where the name comes from. Again, observe all of the beautiful artistic details that are here, starting from the ornamentation of Vishnu, his headgear, and below you can see his devotees actually praying to him. So a lot of these sculptures have a lot of artistic merit. Similarly, on one side we saw Vishnu, and on other side we actually have, sorry, okay, on this side we have a depiction of Brahma. So as you can see, Brahma has, you can see the three heads of Brahma here. And Brahma is also known as the creator. And observe on the sides of Brahma, there are depictions of many rishis and also many devotees. So you can see that the devotees are actually inclined towards him. The artists have made it in a way that they show that they are inclined towards Brahma and they are offering their prayers. And if you look at the panel below, you'll see that we don't just observe rishis and humans, we also see the depiction of animals. So what this shows is that everyone is bowing down in front of the in front of the deity, and they are paying their respects. So a lot of these sculptures that you see on the temples that have been brought from the temples, they actually draw inspiration from real life. So they will not just depict your gods and goddesses, but they also have depictions of real life. And let us look at one more story before heading out of this gallery. Second. Okay. Sorry. Okay. Yeah. So, yeah. Okay. So this is another really interesting story we have, that is of King Sala. Okay. So the story basically goes that there was a rishi in the forest, and he saw this huge tiger in front of him. You can see he saw a huge lion in front of him. You can see it here. And of course, he got really scared of it, right? As any person would, he got really scared. And at that time, he knew that King Sala was also there in the same forest. So he basically shouted out, Hoy Sala. Okay, so he called him Hoy Sala. And the king immediately came to his rescue and actually killed the animal, killed the creature. So that is where you might have heard of the dynasty known as Hoysala. So after this incident, he got the title of Hoysala, and his further generations got this particular name. So that is where the dynastic name comes from. Of course, these are different mythological stories that are there. So now, and there are many other, so there are depictions of Vishnu, of Brahma, of Shiva, various Indian goddesses, and there are also, like I said in the beginning, we also have examples of Buddhist and Jain sculptures. So I have taken you in detail through these two very extensive galleries that we have. I'll quickly show you just one more gallery, and just to get you an idea of the variety of artifacts and the variety of collection that we have. So right now, what we saw are mostly historical collections, right? Things that tell us about days gone by. And apart from that, we also have a really big natural history section. Okay. So I will just take you through it. There are different kinds of birds, different kind of mammals, and in a lot of these specimens, the process that has been used to preserve these animals and birds is called taxidermy. Okay, so it is a very highly scientific process where the skin of the animal is used, and the animal is stuffed in a way such that it is preserved for many, many years, because of course these are decomposable things which will get ruined over time. But so that people can come here and look at many specimens of rare plants, rare animals, so scientists perform these kinds of functions and they preserve the animals and plants here. Okay, so this is just a quick overview of the section. As you can see, there are some flamingos here, And what they have done is that they have created in the background, as you can see, they have created their natural habitat, their natural vegetation, so that when you come here and you look at this, you can actually get an idea of where these animals reside, how they reside. Okay, because different animals have different kinds of vegetation. So, yeah. Okay. So I think I have told, so I think we're also running out of time. Yeah. Okay. So I'll leave the last 5 minutes for questions. And again, just to reiterate, the gallery views that I showed you today are actually available online that all of you can access. Okay. And I will, so it's called Google Arts and Culture. Okay. Yeah. So this is called Google Arts and Culture. So if you go on their page and if you actually look at the museum's page, you will be able to see all of these galleries that I showed you today. Okay. So does anyone have any questions about the museum, about any of the artifacts that we saw? Any comments? Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. I'll read them to you.
Mhm.
Can a school come to visit your museum?
Yes, definitely. We have a lot of schools that come in groups to visit the museum. And I forgot to mention this in the beginning. We actually have a special section of the museum that is exclusively meant for children. Okay. So it's called the Children's Museum. And if you are visiting the museum with your school group, and you would like to get a guided tour or you would like to have someone show you around, then we can definitely arrange that as well. We do guided tours. And like I said, the Children's Museum is also there. And apart from that, we also have a really interesting project which is called the Museum on Wheels. So it's actually a traveling exhibition. It's a mobile exhibition on a bus which travels from school to school or place to place. And we go to many parts of Maharashtra, Gujarat, Karnataka, Goa. And our motto is if you cannot come to the museum comes to you. So if you are interested, you can also invite the bus to your institution, whether it's a school, a college. So any kind of place where you feel like people will be interested in looking at these kinds of exhibitions, the bus can definitely go there. So if what I'll do is I will actually write down our email ID here. Okay. So if you would like to bring your school or a group to the museum and you want to contact us for any guided tours or anything, you can write to us at the email ID that I have written on the chat box. And if you would like, one second. Okay. And if you would like to invite the museum to come to you in the form of the museum bus, that I have given the email ID for that as well. So do get in touch with us, even if you are coming or if you are inviting us to your institution, we can definitely give you more details and we can work it out. Yeah. Anything else? Any other questions?
How many days in a week the museum is open?
So the museum is actually open every day from 10:15 to 6 p.m. And the children's museum, the children's museum is inside the main museum itself. So that also has the same timing. It's from 10:15 to 5:30. So you can come on any day It's open on all days except public holidays like your Gandhi Jayanti. There are some public holidays, but otherwise it's mostly open. And another way that you can actually follow all the updates of the museum is by following our Instagram page. So, the name of the page is CSMBS. You can just look for us on Instagram. And we actually keep posting about a lot of the educational programs that we do. So, suppose we are having any special sessions, any seminars, any talks, or anything, whether it's online or offline, we regularly update it on the Instagram page. Yeah. So these are some of the resources that you can use. You can also check our website. So if you're interested in learning more about, I mean, I just covered a few of the objects we had. But if you are interested in knowing more about these objects, you can definitely check out our website. And on that website, you will see that there are descriptions of many different kinds of objects. Okay. I think I can see a hand here from Vijay Bhumi University. So yeah, please ask.
That why some structures have why some
Uh,
structures does not have hands, sir?
Sorry, can you repeat the question? Your voice is breaking a little.
I have a doubt that why some structures does not have hands.
Okay, so it's mostly natural wear and tear. So, like I said, most of these sculptures were actually recovered from temples. Okay, in the case of Hindu sculptures, they are recovered from temples that were built centuries ago. Okay, that's like hundreds of years ago. So, although they are made of stone, but they cannot last in their pristine condition forever. So, over time, there is rain, there are earthquakes, okay? Of course, there are all these natural calamities. Apart from that, there are human actions as well. So, suppose one dynasty is overthrown by another dynasty. You will read in your history books how one dynasty comes after another. So usually, when there is war, when there is destruction, so a lot of these sculptures, a lot of these monuments also get affected. Okay. And it's not just now, like even if it's not just something that happened in medieval times. Even when you look now, current, if you take the example of current crisis like in Ukraine, Afghanistan, so even these places which have had wars and destructions, a lot of the times their heritage building, their heritage monuments get destroyed. So there are a lot of factors that come into play, both natural and artificial, which is why it is very rare to find sculptures in its pristine, in its original condition. There is some wear and tear that always happens. But our attempt at the museum is to maintain, maintain it the best we can. Of course, we can't return it to its original state, but we try to maintain it with the best we can. And we have a lot of scientists, a lot of experts at the museum who are called conservators. Okay. So conservators, it is their job to actually preserve and conserve the object the best they can. Okay. I hope that answers your question. Okay.
Thank you.
Welcome. I think there's another question. Is making a museum in an old building better than having a new building? So, I mean, there is no right or wrong. I mean, it's not better, it's not worse. What you have to keep in mind while a museum is being built is what is the mission of the museum. Okay, it is not just about collecting things and putting it somewhere for people to see. Okay, that is not what we are doing here. The reason for collection, the reason for preservation is so that people actually get an interest in history, in natural sciences, all of these different things. It's an educational tool, just like how we have schools, we have colleges. It's also a source of entertainment for people. It's not just about studies and academic building, but also about entertainment for people. So it's a very lively space at the end of the day. So whether you are building a museum in 100-year-old house, or you are building a museum in a very newly modern building, it does not matter as long as you have the vision and mission right in your head about what you actually want to do with the museum. Because the outer structure is kind of like the packaging. Yeah, of course, if there is a heritage building, there are some museums, for example, uh, where Indira Gandhi lived and she was shot, where Lal Bahadur Shastri lived, where Jawaharlal Nehru lived. So all of these houses have actually been turned into museums. So that in that particular context, it makes sense that you keep Nehru's things in Nehru's house so that people can come and understand how he lived. Okay. So I believe the answer to that is it completely depends on the context of why the museum is being built. Yeah. Okay.
Whichever university ask. Vijayabhumi University, please unmute yourself and ask the question.
Good afternoon, ma'am. My name is Jason Satra. I'm from Nalanda Public School. My question was that what was the inspiration behind of the building of museum like a palace?
Okay. So, like I said, the museum was built through an open competition where this architect known as John Whitted won. And, the idea of building this museum was to show the grand culture, the grand narrative of Maharashtra and India as well. And when this architect was actually commissioned, it is his vision of what a museum should look like. It is his idea that came to life. So, in this particular context that you see, it is the artist's vision that comes across. I mean, now, there are many modern museums, or what, like you would say, which look like any other building that you come across. Okay, they don't look like these palaces, they don't look like some kind of a historical house. So it depends on what kind of architectural style is prevalent at that time. Maybe this kind of a style is not prevalent right now. So this was more of an architectural design, an architectural thought, why this whole Indo-Saracenic style was used to build the museum. Does that answer your question?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Welcome. Thank you so much.
Correct, ma'am. I have one more question coming up. Was Jahangir Art Gallery carved out of this museum?
No. So Jahangir Art Gallery is actually right beside the museum. Like I can't show it to you here, but if you come here, so there is an actually the gallery is separate, and it has like there is a gate, but then you have to enter it separately. So these two buildings are actually adjacent of each other.
Do you have regular exhibitions in the museum?
Sorry, what exhibition?
Do you have exhibitions in the museum?
Yes. So, we have some permanent galleries. Okay. So, like the ones I showed you, your pre and proto history, your sculpture gallery, textiles, natural history, coins, jewelry. So, all of these are called permanent galleries or permanent exhibitions. So at any time of the year you come, you can view these exhibitions. So we have, it's a two-storied building. Some of the exhibitions are under renovation, but more or less these are the permanent ones. Apart from that, we also have something called special exhibitions, which are usually changed from time to time. So currently we have one that is called Enduring Memories. So the theme, we have a large collection from the Tatas. Okay, so the Tata family is known for their collection of beautiful artifacts all over the world. So they actually donated a large part of that to our museum. So currently we have a special exhibition around that particular aspect. We also have an exhibition on Tanjavur paintings. So, Tanjavur paintings are these beautifully ornate paintings from South India. And a very distinctive feature that they have is the use of gold in the paintings. So, when you actually go into the exhibition, you will be you can see gold all around you. So, these are the exhibitions that that keep changing on a rotation. Even the exhibition at the children's museum keeps on rotating, keeps on changing. We have two museum on wheels buses, like I said, which goes from place to place. So the exhibitions inside the buses also keep changing. Like currently we have one exhibition on sound and music, and we have one more exhibition on the museum's collection. We are highlighting the museum's collection. So these are also some exhibitions that keep changing from time to time. So these are the two main kinds of exhibitions we have. Sorry, I think you're on mute.
Vijay Bhumi University, yes, please.
Good afternoon, ma'am. My name is Regina Purohit. I'm from Harappan School. So, ma'am,
No, no, audible. Can you please be a little louder? Your volume is really low. Keep the mic a little more closer to your mouth.
uh, my name is Regina Purohit. I'm from Nalanda Public School. So, if schools were to attend or the schools were to visit the museum, then how much time should they dedicate to visit the museum, like to cover up as much as they can and to observe as much as they can?
Okay, so I think the answer to your question is how deep do you want to see the museum? Okay, so we have galleries on the ground floor, on the first floor. So if you are visiting from your school as a group or something, then and if you have limited time in your hands, then we can do a highlights tour. Like we can take you to all of the galleries and show you the highlight of it. So that would just take maybe like 2 hours, 1, 2 hours or something. Yeah. But if you actually want to go in depth, if you want to view each and every artifact properly, so it can take up to 2, 3 days. Or if you start sitting and reading what all of this is about, then it can maybe even take up to a week or so. Okay. So the answer to the question is that it depends on how much in depth you want to see it. But if you want to get an overall view of the museum, then I would say that definitely come like in the morning, maybe at around 10:15, 10:30 when the museum opens. Then you can view half of it till lunch, and by evening you can be done with it. So like you can be done with it in a day or so.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, ma'am, what are the career options for the students in the field of museum?
Okay, so there are a lot of, so we at the museum we have people from many different backgrounds working here. So of course we have people from history, we have people from archaeology. Okay, and there is one more. There is a subject called museology as well. So maybe I don't know if you, it's basically museum studies in short. It teaches you all about how a museum is formed, how you have to manage it, how you have to promote it, how you have to handle it. So the entire management process and the entire educational process of the museum is taught. And even at CSMVS, we actually have diploma course. It's a PG diploma course. It's you can pursue it after your bachelor's probably, where it's a 1 year course where they teach you about museology and conservation. So the two aspects of managing the museum and managing collections and also taking care of objects as well. So there are many different things that come into this. If you want more details about it, you can check the website of CSMBS. But it's not compulsory that you need to have a degree or a diploma in museology to enter this. We have people from varied backgrounds. We have people from accounts. We have people from many different aspects as well, because the whole functioning of the museum can't solely be done based on history, right? We have so many different processes that are here. We have administration, conservation. We have a curatorial department who basically who study objects, who determine which objects go where. So, of course, an interest in history, or if you are more interested in zoology and botany, that also works because we have a natural history section as well. So I would say that interest is the most important. And if students are interested, we also have internship programs which can be done by, we have students from starting from like class 10, 11 as well. So they can definitely do apply for these internships, because that is how they will know if this is a sector that they are actually interested in. So many museums across India actually have internship programs, including CSMBS. You can get the details on Instagram, on our website. So that would be a good way to proceed. Like, if you are interested, you can start with internships and then see how it goes.
Thank you so much for all that information, ma'am. One last thing I would like to ask you for
Yeah,
is if you can repeat the websites for everybody here.
yeah. Yes, for sure, for sure. Let me actually type it on. I'll say and I'll type as well. I'll do both. So if you just go to Google, okay, I'll show it to here. So if you just open Google and type CSMVS, okay, you just have to type CSMVS, and this website comes up, which is Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj Vastu Sangralaya. It's the first, okay, and this is what the website looks like. You can, if you just explore, you can get all the resources that I talked about inside the website. Okay, you have about the different programs, you have about the museum bus, about the children's museum. Then you can also read about the internships we have, the PG diploma course that we have. So just take like maybe 10 minutes to go through the entire website, and it more or less has all of the information that we talked about here. So this is the website.
Great. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Okay, welcome.
I'd like to thank you for the lovely and the informative talk inside this beautiful session. Thank you for everything.
Thank you so much. It was lovely being here and it was lovely interacting with you all. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
So with we end with the today's session. Thank you, and I would like to thank all of the people here, the participants. Thank you for joining us and being here for a lovely session. Thank you so much.